I recently had the opportunity to interview Bob from the Semi-Retired Bob YouTube channel. So without further ado, let's go to that interview. All right. Thank you, Bob, for being on the show today.
My pleasure, Brian.
So let's get started with telling the audience a little bit about yourself and, how you found the carnivore diet and just that whole progression and so forth.
Okay, well, I'll start by saying I am semi retired Bob. I'm 60 years old. I started the carnivore diet 17 months ago today. It was on May the 9th last year that I started. But how I got started on that is a bit of an involved story. To understand the entire thing, we do have to back up for just a moment to 1983. That's the year I was discharged from the military because I was diagnosed with gout. Now, the interesting part about that is the Army physician gave me a handout on how to treat gout and how to manage it. And then I found a private doctor when they finished the discharge process, and he gave me basically the same handout. And that handout said lots of whole grains, lots of fruits and vegetables. Don't eat meat. If you're going to eat meat, eat just chicken and fish and have about a palm sized piece, which is about 2 ounces, just a couple of times a week. Don't eat a lot of meat because meat causes gout. And I proceeded to live the rest of my life on that knowledge that eating meat causes gout. We knew that as fact in 1983. Fast forward about 20 years, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Now, during those 20 years, I knew that I was gaining weight, but there wasn't a whole lot I could do about it because we knew as fact at that time, all you had to do to get healthier and lose weight was to eat less and move more. That was also fact. We knew that as absolute. Just eat less and move more, and you'll get fit and healthy. But the problem with that is that when you have gout, every time you try to do the move more part, then you have a gout attack. And it stops your progress for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, so that if you managed to lose a pound before you got interrupted, because you were laying around on the couch because you couldn't stand up for several weeks, you'd gain back 2 or 3. And that slowly progressed over the course of the next 20 years when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And then the dietitian at my doctor's office gave me a handout on what I should eat as a diabetic to help control my diabetes. It was very similar to the gout diet. I mean, it was lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of whole grains, don't eat a lot of meat, don't eat a lot of eggs, all of these other things that you weren't supposed to do. And the funny part about this whole thing is that she called it a carb controlled diet. She had me eating. She said the best way to control diabetes is not to cut out carbs, but make sure you're eating the same amount of carbs every day at the same time every day. So she wanted me to divide up my meals into 3 meals a day where I'm eating about 60 carbs each meal, and then 3 15 carb snacks in between. Add that all up, you get 60, 120, 180 plus 45 is 225 carbs a day. No wonder that didn't work out so well. But I followed her advice. And the funny thing is I did manage to lose a few pounds following her diet. So I thought that was the way it was going. And I took all of the drugs they gave me to take. And when I went back in to get my A1C checked, it was down. It originally was at 10.3 and it dropped to about 8 that first check. And then it hovered between 7.5 and 8.5 for the next several years. And every time I went to the doctor, if it was slightly below 8, he said, "You're doing a good job. Keep it up." And if it was slightly above 8, he said, you want to be a little careful and watch this, but he never actually gave any extra advice on how to be careful and watch it. All he said was be careful and watch it. And I'm thinking, but I'm following the diet your dietitian gave me. What the heck else can I do? Fast forward to 5.5 years ago. I wasn't feeling great. I went to see the doctor. He did all of his tests and says, I don't think it's anything, but there's a little blip on your EKG I don't like, so I'm going to send you over to my cardiologist friend. And I went over to see his cardiologist friend. Come to find out, I mean, nepotism in doctoring is really, really tight because my primary care's physician's daughter is interning with this cardiologist. Um, but that's neither here nor there. So I went to see the cardiologist, and he did all of his stuff. And of course, he's got a bigger EKG machine and stress tests and all that kind of stuff there in his office. And he said, there is a little something there I'm not quite happy about, but I don't think it's that serious. I'd like to get you in for an angiogram. Can you go tomorrow? I said, well, I have Ohio State football tickets for this weekend down in Texas. Can we do it next week? And he's like, oh, sure. I don't see anything that bad on here. Go have fun at football, and I'll schedule you for next Friday for your angiogram. So I went off to Texas, did my football thing, had a lot of fun, got back for the angiogram. And of course, I was unconscious, so I didn't actually see the doctor's face. But the friend of mine that took me to the hospital, because you're going under anesthesia to be released, you have to have somebody there to drive you home if you've been under anesthesia. And John said that the doctor's face was white as a ghost when he came out of the angiogram suite. And apparently I had two arteries that were 98%, that were 100% blocked, and another one that was 98% blocked, all going to the same chamber of my heart. So I was 2% away from just dropping over dead. So, of course, they scheduled me right then and there for a triple bypass surgery. So, following doctor's directions, I went from having gout to contracting type 2 diabetes to getting a triple bypass surgery. And once again, just like when I started doing the dietitian's advice for being diagnosed as diabetic, I followed the advice that they gave me. There's this thing called cardiac rehab, where after you've had a triple bypass surgery or a heart attack or any of the number of things, you go to this thing called cardiac rehab where they hook you up to a heart monitor and have you exercise right there with them. And the first 40 minutes of it is doing exercises while they watch you. And the last 20 minutes is this dietitian retraining thing. And her advice was basically the same as the same advice I'd gotten back in 1983 and had been following my entire life. Lots of fruit and vegetables, lots of whole grains, don't eat a lot of meat, don't eat a lot of eggs. It's all the same crap. So while I did feel better after that, I did start to slide downhill again because I still have all the same problems I had before. I'm still diabetic. I still have gout. I still can't exercise. And I was sitting in my camper trailer down in North Carolina in late March, early April of last year. And I don't know why it got put on my YouTube watch screen because I've always been a travel, tourism, photography, van life, camping, homesteading, that kind of a YouTube consumer. Those are the only channels I watched. And I do believe that God reached into my computer and said, this is the video you need to see. Because right there at the top center of my homepage was a video by a guy named Dante Ferrigno. His channel is called Ferrigno's Freedom. And it was 125 days on the Lion Diet. I don't know what the heck the Lion Diet was, but he had a before and an after picture in his thumbnail. And I thought, well, that looks pretty darn good. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this. So I turned that video on and was watching it. And it's like, oh, this is great. But This is just an extreme form of the ketogenic diet. And I can't do a ketogenic diet because I can't eat meat because meat causes gout. That's just the facts of life. But because I'd watched his video, YouTube then served up some other things to me, and I'm like, who's this guy? And it was a country doctor down in the middle of Tennessee by the name of Dr. Ken Berry. Now, I immediately connected with how he talked because I'm from the same area of the country originally. And I watched a few of his videos, and he made a lot of sense. But of course, I know as fact that I can't eat meat because I have gout. But I did notice he was going live that night. And I thought, well, I'm going to go see if I can't get a question answered. So I went into his live stream and, of course, threw my hands up in despair right there in the trailer because there were already like 2,000 people waiting for the live to start. And it's like, I'm never going to get a question answered. But because I was there, I went ahead and typed in my question. I have gout. I've had gout for 40 years. I can't do a ketogenic diet. Is there a version of this diet I can do? And if I had known it was going to be so successful, I would have written her name down. I know it was a girl's name, so at that time it had to be either Mitzi or Paola, because those were the two girls that Dr. Berry had as moderators. But one of them sent me back a message that said, Bob, meat does not cause gout. Here's a link to Dr. Berry's gout video. You should probably go watch that. I'm like, what do you mean meat doesn't cause gout? Of course meat causes gout. I've known this as fact for 40 years. But I thought, I've come this far. What's it going to hurt? So I clicked on the link and watched his video and proceeded to have everything I knew as fact for the previous 40 years turned on its head. It's like, well, this just can't be right. This guy's whacked out of his mind. But he had a couple other videos, and I watched those, and it's like, this just can't be right. But I thought about it some more, and I was actually in the process of packing up my camper because it was time to go home to Nebraska for the year. I was going to stop in Ohio and visit with my sister and my mom. And I decided, you know what? The worst it can do is kill me. And I'm already just sitting around my camper in a really nice location, but I'm just sitting around in my camper waiting to die anyway. So if this kills me, no big deal. So I decided, because I was traveling to visit with my sister, it was not fair to call her up 2 days before I got there and say, hey, I'm changing my diet. You have to feed me steak every day while I'm there. That would have gone over like a sack of bricks. So I thought, okay, I'll do it the second I get home. And I traveled home from Ohio to Nebraska on May the 8th. When I got home, I went to the grocery store because, of course, there's nothing in the house after being gone all winter. I went to the grocery store and I stocked up on meat and eggs. And on May the 9th, I started. And the rest, as they say, is history. I mean, within the first couple of weeks, I noticed, because I did not expect to lose weight. That was not my primary objective. My primary objective was to get some pain relief, because everything that I had seen to that point was saying that the carnivore and ketogenic diets could help with arthritis pain. And at that time, I could barely stand for 2 to 2.5 minutes without severe pain in my back because I also had spinal stenosis. But I noticed that the pain wasn't quite so bad within the first couple of weeks. And I noticed that my clothes were starting to get not super loose, but a little bit looser. So I thought, I might actually be losing a couple pounds. I'm going to go step on the scale. So I was about 2 weeks into it the first time I stepped on the scale, and I was at 315 pounds. I suspect when I actually started, given the curve of how I lost weight early, I was probably a lot closer to 340 pounds when I started. But I used 315 as my baseline because that's the first time I stepped on the scale. And like I said, the rest, as they say, is history. Everything got better. I won't say it got better all at once. I'm now 17 months into it. But over the course of the next 17 months, everything has gotten better. And that's how I found the carnivore diet.
So how quickly do you think that the gout symptoms went away?
Almost immediately. I started on May the 9th. Now, I had just had, I'm told that some people, when they start the carnivore diet, have one more major gout attack. But I had just had one a few weeks prior to starting the carnivore diet. That may or may not have had anything to do with it. But I can tell you, I have had zero gout attacks since I started the carnivore diet 17 months ago, after having 5 to 6 major gout attacks a year plus multiple mini gout attacks for the previous 40 years.
Yeah, that's just awesome. Congratulations. So you talked a little bit about how weight loss wasn't your primary reason or anything, but I know you have lost a lot of weight. So can you talk a little bit about how much weight you've lost?
Yeah, and I still say today that the weight loss is secondary to everything else because, yes, I have lost about 156 pounds, but that's very minor in comparison to everything else. I had arthritis really, really bad. When I first started, this was about the best fist I could make. My hands were so locked up. And now, as you can see, my hands work just fine. My arthritis is 98 to 99% better. I have spinal stenosis, which is a narrowing of the spinal column. Obviously, a lot of that is due to inflammation because now that I no longer have inflammation in my body, that is also 98 to 99% better. I had fatty liver. I say had because my liver markers are now better than they've ever been. I had chronic kidney disease. I say had because my kidney markers are also now better than they have ever been. Um, what else? Yeah. Oh, little thing, prescription medications. I used to, because of all of the things I had wrong with me, including, the heart surgery and diabetes and high blood pressure and everything else. I was taking 13 prescription drugs every morning when I woke up and 9 more prescription drugs at night when I went to bed. And scattered throughout the day was multiple pain pills. And today I take no prescription medication. Even with 3 different blood pressure medicines, my blood pressure on average ran between 145 and 150 over 110 to 120. It was always, even with 3 blood pressure medicines, it was still really, really high. And this morning I wrote it down because I thought you might ask me. This morning when I took my blood pressure, it was 118 over 62 on 0 medications. So that's the story. So yes, I have lost 156 pounds, but that's nothing compared to everything else.
Hmm. And how about the diabetes? How's your A1C now?
Last 2 times I had it checked, it was at 4.8.
Congratulations. That's a great number.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Are you now, do you have to take any medication for diabetes or are you completely off
No,
of
I
that?
don't. I don't take any prescription medications. None.
Okay.
My cardiologist even I was still taking a blood thinner over the winter because when I went to see my cardiologist last fall, he said, "Well, let's go ahead and take this over the winter. You're doing really well, but let's go ahead and continue the blood thinner till I see you in the spring." And at that time, I was down about 80, 85 pounds. I got back this spring down 150 plus, and he's like, "You can throw those blood thinners away. You don't need them anymore."
So when you went to carnivore, you said that when you got home that you went and bought meat. So I'm assuming then you just kind of jumped right in. You didn't like slowly transition yourself, right?
Yes. I do not recommend that method for anybody. Um, Unless if you're like me and you're retired and don't actually have to go anywhere for a few weeks other than to the bathroom, then by all means jump right in. But if you have a job that you have to get to and that you have to actually spend time there not running to the bathroom, I would suggest a slow transition over 6 to 8 weeks to avoid those issues.
So you would, knowing that now, would you do a slow transition yourself, even though you were retired, or would you still just jump right in just to get there quicker?
I I would still jump right in, me personally, because that's my personality type. I either do this thing or I don't do this thing. If I had tried a slow transition, I said, well, I didn't have a pizza yesterday, so having a pizza today will be a nice transition food. And then a few days later, I'd say, well, I didn't have any donuts today for the last week or two, so a donut or four will make a really good transition today. So I just jumped right in.
And so you have seen a lot of different improvements from the carnivore diet. But if you had to just pick one that you would say is the greatest improvement you've had, which one would that be?
Wow, that's really hard to say. If I had to pick one thing, I would say it's my overall health. Because remember, before I started the carnivore diet, I could barely stand for 2 to 2.5 minutes at a time. Now I walk between 3 to 8 miles a day. I do my own yard work. I cut my own grass. I go to the YMCA and work out 4 days a week, twice in chest deep water, walking as hard as I can, twice working on a cable machine to strengthen my shoulders. Because after my heart surgery, my chest never healed right. So it always felt, anytime I tried to pick up anything more than 5 pounds, it felt like my chest was going to blow apart on me. That is all completely healed. I do push ups, I do sit ups, I do pull ups. Um, I recently bought some land down in Texas. I'm getting loaded up to head for Texas. I'm going to start working on building my own house down there in the desert of Texas. Um, I wouldn't have considered any of that 17 months ago. So if I have to pick one thing, overall health is going to be that one thing.
And then going into like what you eat, what does a typical day look like for you on the carnivore diet?
I primarily eat one meal a day. I've been adding a little extra here and there because I've been doing so much stuff since I got home from the South this year. Um, but I am still primarily one meal a day. And well, like today, I had 4 quarter-pound hamburger patties and 10 eggs. And that's my meal. Sometimes I'll have, a couple pounds of roast. Every once in a while, if I find them on sale, I'll have a steak. So primarily, I try to eat between 2 and 2.25 pounds of beef a day. And if I don't have that much, like four of the burger patties is just a pound of beef, so I augment that with 8 to 10 eggs, depending on how hungry I am. Sometimes I'll eat as few as four, and sometimes I'll have as many as a dozen, just depending on how hungry I am. I have just recently switched to basically just ground beef and eggs because I'm trying to bankroll a little extra money so that I've got a little extra money in my pocket when I head down to Texas for the little incidental expenses that I have not thought of yet that I know are going to crop up when I get down there and start living in the middle of the desert.
So pretty much it sounds like then your beef and eggs. Do you do anything like bacon or any chicken or anything like that, or is it just predominantly beef and eggs?
It's predominantly beef and eggs. If I find a good sale on chicken thighs with the skin on, I'll buy those and cook those up. Um, I just finished the last package of bacon out of my freezer. The only reason I had that bacon, I don't buy it when it's not on sale, but I found 5 packages of it about 3 months ago in the manager's sale bin at my local grocery store that I go to. So I got 5 packages for it was like 2.25 each. And if you can get bacon for 2.25 a pound, you buy it and throw it in the freezer. And that's what I did. And now all 5 of those are gone. So now I'm patiently waiting for the next time I see a manager's sale on bacon, and I will buy more of that, but I tend not to eat bacon on a regular basis just because it's expensive. Just like, I don't eat ribeyes unless they're on sale because they are expensive.
And then how about drinking? Are you more just a water guy, or do you mix in like sparkling water, coffee, or anything like that?
I have coffee in the morning. I don't drink coffee so much for my own personal enjoyment. Coffee is more of a buffer for the safety of those people that I come in contact with on a daily basis. But other than my morning coffee, I just drink water. Um, I originally, because Dr. Berry said it was okay, I started off, you know, drinking tons of Diet Coke because you know, I used to drink a ton of Diet Coke. When I say a ton, I mean I would go through uh, a 12 pack about every day and a half. I drank a lot of Diet Coke. Um, but I used the Nisha Berry method of adding sparkling water to it to slowly dilute it. And I started that about a month into carnivore. It's like, I'm doing okay with this. It's time to get rid of the Diet Coke and the chemical crap storm that it's bringing to my body. So I bought a bunch of sparkling water and started diluting it. And it took about 3.5 weeks. And I thought I was going to need one more 12 pack of Diet Coke. So I bought another 12 pack, but I never even used it. It sat on my kitchen floor until it expired and then it got thrown away because I never used it. And since then, I also haven't bought any sparkling water because I'm not really a fan of sparkling water by itself. So it's just water outside of my coffee in the morning.
You mentioned your sister, right? That you had visited her before you started the carnivore diet. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what was her thoughts when you started carnivore? Was she skeptic of it or whatever? And how has that changed as she's seen your improvements, throughout the last 17 months?
Well, Janet is a skeptic of everything because she's retired Air Force and she retired with a star on her shoulder. So she was a very high ranking officer. But as is her normal operating, she did not give approval or disapproval. She just asked me a bunch of questions to find out if I had actually researched this or if it was just something I was doing on a whim. And because of the answers that I gave her, she decided that I knew what I was doing. And she's like, well, just let me know how it's going. And then, of course, when I saw her that next fall, she was amazed at how much weight I had lost and how much better I was doing. Because when I was there on my way home, I could barely hobble out to her car for her to drive us over to the nursing facility where my mom's at, which is only, I mean, it's not even a mile away. She walks over there 2 or 3 times a day. And she would, when we were there, when I was there on my way home in the spring, she drove over, dropped me off at the front door, and then parked the car because mom's room was quite a ways back the hallway in the facility. So she didn't think I could make it all the way back to mom's room if I had to walk across the parking lot first. And when I was back there in the fall, headed south again, she was just amazed. And I'm like, well, let's go see mom. And she started to get her car keys. He said, no, we can walk over. So, I walked over to visit with mom several times while I was there. And she was amazed by that. My other sister has, she was moderately supportive. She's been on and off keto for the last 15, 20 years or so. But I don't think it really matters what her diet is because she's a runner. She ran in Boston about 5 years ago, and she retired from teaching to go manage a running store. So she's always been super tiny. So I don't think she didn't really have an opinion one way or the other. She seemed to think it would work. Was just curious if I could sustain it, but now I don't get any questions from them at all. In fact, they're probably sick of hearing me talk about it.
You have a YouTube channel, and it's at semi-retired Bob. So I'll have a link in the description for that channel. But tell us a little bit about that channel. When did you start it, and what you do on that channel and so forth.
Actually, I started the YouTube channel about 5.5 years ago when I got done with my heart surgery. I realized I was just sitting around the house again with nothing to do because I couldn't go back to work. So I actually started the channel as a photography channel. And if you go to the videos tab and click on the oldest, you'll see I've got like a 6-part zoo series and a 3 or 4 video series on Father Flanagan's Boys Town here in Omaha, and a few others. Um, I never really got any traction. I had like 25 or 30 subscribers, and they were all friends and family. But when I went and started Carnivore, I decided the best way, rather than calling everybody individually, was to just post up a video that I'm going to try this carnivore diet. Wish me luck. So I put that video out, and then and I picked up 25 or 30 subscribers off that. I'm not sure how that happened, but I did. And then I put out the second video, which was like 29 pounds in 29 days or something like that. And I picked up a few more subscribers. And over the course of the next couple of months, I picked up a few subscribers here and there. And then I started walking on September the 1st. I even said in that before I started the walking that I'm not going to post this stuff up every day, but I want everybody to try and do 1% better every day just to get a little further in whatever exercise you're doing. But I did that first day, and that video got like 1,000 views. And I'm like, huh, okay. And it just kept snowballing from there. And it's like, well, and I was on like day 15 or 16 of last September doing daily videos. When I came to the realization that people are actually watching this, and now I sort of feel an obligation to keep going because you never know who's going to be watching next. And if I can find one person with each video that has never heard of carnivore, and if they can change their life the way my life has changed, then making that video will be worth my time. And now it's been going on. I've been putting out daily content for 12, 13 months or so now. And I feel like I'm actually doing what God intended me to do when He saved me from not dying on the operating table, getting a triple bypass surgery. I am now giving people hope and the opportunity to improve their life in hopes that perhaps if they have not already found Jesus, that perhaps they will. And I believe with every fiber of my being that I am now doing for the first time in my life exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
So, Bob, to finish off the interview, I want to give you the floor to just talk to the audience about whatever it is that you want to talk about. So, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, I've alluded to it before. 1%. That's all you have to do. Just be 1% better today than you were yesterday. It does not necessarily have to be better at diet or better at exercise. This is about a complete life. So, whether it's reading your Bible or some other skill that you're working on, maybe you're learning how to crochet or knit. Whatever it is you're working on, if you do 1% more today than you did yesterday, you have improved, and I say you will never stall. You may stall at weight loss, You may stall at getting healthier, but you will not stall in life as long as you continue to get 1% better at something every day. And if you've watched it to this point and you're still undecided about doing a carnivore diet, what in the world is it going to take to convince you? I went from sitting around the house waiting to die to now I am on my way to Texas to build my own house with these two hands and some power tools that I bought. I'm not going to actually do it all with hand tools. I did buy some power tools, but I'm going to build myself a house from scratch using primarily earth bag construction, which means I'm going to be using a shovel a lot. What in the world are you waiting on? The only thing you have to lose by trying the carnivore diet is the 60 days that I recommend you give it a try. After that, I won't have to coax you to try it anymore because something is going to be better in your life after giving it a full 60 days. Now, I see people will try the carnivore diet for a week or two or even a month, and it's like, this isn't working for me. I'm not going to do it. You have to give your body time to fully adapt to being a fat burner as opposed to a carb burner. So I say give it a full 60 days. And if you don't see improvement, well, I can't imagine that you won't. You will. I don't know if it's going to be weight loss. I don't know if it's going to be your type 2 diabetes or your arthritis or whatever autoimmune condition you have, or whether it's going to be your irritable bowel, or whether it's going to be your AFib, or whatever it is. Something is going to be better in those 60 days. What have you got to lose? Give it a try. And those of you that are already going, keep pushing forward every day, 1% better every day, because you know where you want to get to. You know what your why is. If you don't know what your why is the most important thing you can get. It's why you're doing what you're doing. Why do you want to lose weight? Is it because you want to be able to take your kids to the zoo, or take your grandkids to the zoo, or get down on the floor and play with your grandkids, or take your dog for a walk, take them to the park? Whatever your why is, you know what that why is. Keep it right out there in front of you at all times, because if you know what your why is, that's where you're trying to go. And 1% better every day will get you to that why a lot faster than you think it will.
All right, Bob, you've had a fantastic transformation over the last 17 months. Thank you for coming on and talking about your experiences and what you've seen. It's very inspiring. I'm sure that there are going to be people out there that are going to see the video and are going to be inspired by it. So thank you very much for coming on today.
Well, thanks for having me, Brian. It's great to talk to you again. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, sounds good.